Hello and welcome to the Elizabeth Johnston podcast. I am so excited to introduce my guest to you today. Her name is Christine Jurgen. Christine is a prominent pro-life advocate, speaker, and podcast host and homeschool mom. After experiencing an unplanned pregnancy herself, she became passionate about supporting women in similar situations. She founded Be Their Village, an organization dedicated to connecting women in unplanned pregnancies with local resources and mobilizing the pro-life community to fulfill baby registries for those choosing life. Christine hosts the podcast Speak Out with Christine Jurgen, where she engages in discussions on pro-life topics with notable figures, and she's also an important contributor with Students for Life. Christine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. And I love that our studios look the same.
Yes, we both have like similar trees. We were laughing about that earlier. I felt like as I prepared for this episode today that I was like, Christine and I are the same person. We are both homeschool moms. We are both very passionate about coming around mothers who have chosen life for their babies and kind of have organically done a lot of fundraising using the platforms that God's given us to fundraise for these moms to support them. And so this is going to be an amazing conversation. I feel like we have so much in common. And just appreciate all the work that you are doing, have been following for years. Christine, I'd love for you to share more about your personal story briefly, the transition from having an unplanned pregnancy to becoming a pro-life advocate yourself, an activist, is such an interesting story. Could you share with the audience what that looked like?
Yeah. So I kind of like to say that I was dragged into it. God really dragged me into it because I put my feet down and I did not want to be in the pro-life movement because it can be deemed controversial, right?
Yeah.
This was something I didn't want to go into. I'm like, can't we just like feed the hungry or something? Everybody loves that. Why do we have to go into this? So it all started when I was 20 years old. I like to say that I knew Jesus, but I wasn't walking with him. And I was finding my worth in places that I shouldn't. And I found myself in an unplanned pregnancy. I was in the process of going to school and, I didn't really know what abortion was. I didn't know much about it. I knew that, I was raised with it being wrong, but I never had a conversation, especially an in-depth conversation with my mom or my dad about what abortion actually is. It's just, you don't do that. And so I always knew that it was wrong, but I can tell you when you get yourself into a situation like that, even people who know that it's wrong, whether how in depth they know that or not, sometimes are caught questioning things, what should I do now? I mean, I know this is wrong, but should I do it? Like, am I actually prepared for this? The father wasn't wanting to be involved. I was not sure that I could handle it. And so I think what really happened was that I was forced to figure out how pro-life I was. Am I going to walk out my pro-life beliefs? So I ended up having a conversation with the father and letting him know about the situation. And he was not prepared for a child. He said, a child is not something that I'm willing to consider at the moment. I would like for you to have an abortion. And I said, no, that's not something that I am willing to consider once I decided to choose life. And then he didn't talk to me for quite a while. And about 3 months later, or maybe it was a couple months, received contact from him. And he said, if I give you $50,000, will you have an abortion? And pardon my French, I'll bleep the word, but I said, you can take that money and shove it up your what. These are my morals. These are my values. Like I've heard his heartbeat. His life is not my life to take. Wow. And it just was something that was like, okay, I'm going to be doing this most likely by myself. And I am here to protect this child. And I remember going to sleep, crying and holding my belly. I don't want to get emotional, thinking like, I will try to love you enough for the both of us. And
you have.
And I never looked back. And I say that, in that moment, there was a lot of fear and uncertainty. And I think a lot of times that's when we make that decision. Oh, well, obviously the dad doesn't want the baby or whatever. So I have to go do this. I'm going to be alone. But honestly, our circumstances in that moment aren't always what they're going to be years later down the road. And I will say that Noah my son Noah does have a relationship with his father now,
Okay.
and they speak nearly every day. And
Wow.
he does live in Colorado. We're in Alabama, so there's some distance between them. However, they do have a relationship with each other. So that,
Yeah.
in that circumstances where I'm thinking, I'm going to be alone forever, and this
Mm,
child is never going to know their father. That's not exactly how it turned out. And I like to say that, when you're in that moment, you don't necessarily know. So
mm.
then from there, I ended up kind of starting to share a little bit of my pro-life beliefs on social media. And it kind of just spiraled. There was a lot of people who were very angry with me for sharing pro-life beliefs, as you can
Yeah.
imagine, and a
Yeah.
lot of people who loved it. But I shared something once, and a woman messaged me, and she said, I want you to know that I woke up this morning. I am pro-life, but I had an appointment scheduled at Planned Parenthood.
Mm,
I saw your post after praying to God for help. You
mm.
made a pro-life post, and I called and canceled that abortion appointment.
Yep.
And so I reached out to my
I've had the
followers,
same
and
thing happen. Such an
yeah.
amazing feeling. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I fell into this. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's great, but that's not enough. Like, how else can I help her? My
Yes.
heart was to help her even more. And so I reached out to my followers. I'm like, do you guys want to help this woman? And they're like, let's do it. So we did. We
Yeah.
did a baby registry. They filled it really quickly. That first one was done in about 24 hours. And
Wow.
then they harassed me to do more. They're like, can you
Yeah.
find more women? Can we help more
Wow.
women? I love doing that. That was exciting. And so it
Yeah.
kind of has just been this spiral thing of, um, I've dragged my feet. I say I did drag my feet because again, it was just something that I did not want to get into with the controversy, but now that is like so easy to shut out.
Yeah.
You're doing what's right and
When you
what's
see a
biblical.
baby come into the world that would not have come into the world had you not been there for a woman 6 months earlier, 7 months earlier,
Oh, yeah.
whatever the case might be. I mean, who cares what they're calling
I
you on
know.
social media, right? I've been
Exactly.
called I've been called blonde Hitler, redneck Barbie, all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy things, and who cares? Like, someone is alive because of you. There is no greater high than, supporting a woman in a crisis like this, as far as I'm
Without a
concerned.
doubt. Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree, and I would say, I check up on him here and there. It's a little boy, and I get to, get updates from his mom, and
Ugh,
seeing that, it's just beautiful, and there's
mm,
no name in the book or hate that could be thrown my way that
right.
would make me regret anything, and even if that was the only child ever that I saved, it's still all worth it.
Oh, yeah, totally. I have had the honor of, throwing baby showers for moms that have chosen life. And my children and I, for 20 years, have stood outside of abortion clinics or I should call them abortion centers,
Mhm.
and have ministered to the men and women walking in, grandparents walking in, and saved so many lives, so many babies' lives. And I love the compassion that you bring to the conversation. I always try to do that as well because it's easy when we think about people who are basically paid assassins who are getting paid to kill these children. It's easy for us to get so angry
Yeah.
and hardened and not see any other side of the story. But, in my case, when I began to see women get driven into an abortion center. And then when the man would drive off, she would run out to us and say, help, my pimp drove me here. I don't want to go through this. Can you help me? And we would
Mm.
walk her through the process of safety and carrying her child, and bringing her child to term. My heart just began to break for the brokenness of the people walking in to this abortion center. And it's the most broken day of their life
Mhm.
when they're walking in, and I began to see things from another perspective. And we need to adopt God's heart for those who find themselves in these situations. And I'm just so thankful that you're a part of this team, that God is building to support women. I did have a question for you about
Yeah.
um, your son. I'm assuming he knows that his father wanted him to be aborted. How have you walked through that with him? How has that affected him? Over the past weeks and months, I've been telling you about a company called Donatio. I'm sure you've heard of the fee that accompanies every online or in-person transaction. Usually, it's 2 or 3% of the total purchase, and this goes to the payment processor. We use these payment processors every day at our local coffee shops and our favorite retailers. Well, Donatio is a Christian payment processing company that has committed to to giving away 50 cents of every dollar they earn to organizations that fight to end human trafficking, domestic violence, hunger, and homelessness while promoting adoption and other pro-life causes. They are on the front lines of shining the light in dark places. If you own a business or website, go to donatioprocessing.com and see if this would be a good fit for you. Now the fees that you are already paying to a payment processor will go to causes that you believe in. In fact, if you switch over to Donatio and tell them I sent you, they have agreed to give 50 cents of every dollar of that to this ministry. You could do so much good without really having to do anything. So go to donatioprocessing.com, fill out the quick form, and tell them that Elizabeth Johnston sent you. Do business, do good, Donatio. If you'd like to become an elite sponsor of the Elizabeth Johnston podcast and get more eyes on your business or organization, please email us at elizabeth@elizabethjohnston.org. How have you walked through that with him? How has that affected him?
He does know, and that was not by my doing, I will say, but it's just something that when you look at a certain caliber of people, a lot of times they are told this is how you can get a problem to go away. I mean, you see people who, have hush money or for whatever
Yeah.
reason, just throw money at the situation. You've seen it with Tristan Thompson tried to do it when he cheated on Khloe Kardashian. There's another basketball player whose name is slipping me at the moment. He tried to pay a woman $75,000. There's a lot of things that we don't know about. There's actors, there's politicians, there's all sorts of people who will
Yeah.
pay money to hush somebody up. And that's just kind of what they do to make a problem go away a lot of times. And in this case, it's interesting because his dad actually hates abortion now, loathes it,
Okay.
which
Okay.
is so interesting.
Mm.
However, I will say, and without, sharing too much of his own story that's
Mhm.
for him to tell, neither of us really knew what abortion was.
Mm.
Even me in saying, I know that it's wrong. I don't want to do it. I didn't know how abortion was even performed. I didn't know
Mm.
anything about it. I didn't know that there was a suction tube, in some types of abortion. I didn't know that they
Mm.
dismember the babies in other types of abortion. I had no idea. And so I genuinely believe that his dad was just ignorant to the
Mm.
issue. We were told, it's the woman's body, the woman's choice. You shouldn't have a say. In this case, he was trying to have a say. But I believe it was pure ignorance. And then when finding out what abortion actually is,
Mm.
it's not just making a problem going away, it's actually killing a baby. The baby's already there. And so the baby's going to come out one way or the other,
Yeah.
alive or dead. And so in this instance, I genuinely believe that, and this is not making an excuse by any means, that his dad was just completely ignorant. But I would say that it's probably something that my son, maybe he doesn't even admit to me how often that he thinks about it, but I'm sure he does. I'm sure that's,
Mm.
not an easy thing to know or to
Yeah.
hear. And, but
Mm.
it's the truth, and it happens every single day. There are women, maybe not to the same tune as me, but there are women who are pressured and coerced into abortion in so many different ways.
Yes.
I'm going to kick you out, whether it's parents, you're not going to live with us anymore if you don't have an abortion, whether it's an
Desperate,
abusive
desperate
abusive,
situations.
yeah,
Yeah.
abusive boyfriend or
Yeah.
husband who is beating her and she feels like she has to go. I mean,
Yeah.
coercion and this is just, it's very real and it
Yeah.
happens all the time. And I think that that's something that we need to be focused on. It's a lot of times I see these women, and I know that there are certain people in the pro-life movement who will completely and wholeheartedly demonize these women. And
Yes.
I'm like, I have been one of these women who is overwhelmingly pressured and
Yeah.
essentially bribed. And it's
Yeah.
really difficult. Now I came out on the other side and I have my son who's a wonderful, the biggest blessing I probably could say that I have ever had. The biggest
Wow.
yes that I said was to
Yes.
having him. But it's difficult when you have somebody who is pressuring you in that way. And I can't imagine if somebody was also beating me and coercing me in other ways as well. So,
Right.
um, as far
And
as
just in a generally very, like, downtrodden situation in their life, whether that be, financially, whatever that situation they find themselves in. So,
totally,
yeah, I have so
totally.
much compassion for the women, walking in, even though, um, I absolutely believe that it's murder, and I absolutely, advocate for it becoming, unthinkable and illegal and not an
Yeah.
option in our nation. So it must have informed your son's father. It must have informed his beliefs on abortion when he got the blessing of having a relationship with his own son.
I would hope so. I mean, I don't talk in depth with him about all of those things,
Yeah.
but I imagine that plays a role in why is not a fan of abortion anymore.
Yeah.
When you see an actual human being and they're
Mhm.
standing next to you and you're like, this human, because it's easy
Yeah.
when they're in the womb and you can ignore it, right? Like
Right.
they're in your belly, you're like, the problem goes away. You never saw the baby. You never saw anything. Like
Yeah.
it's like it was never there. But
Mhm.
when you see an actual human being standing next to you and you're like, this person would not be here
Mhm.
had I chosen abortion.
Yeah.
And in that case, what would it be if it's not murder?
Right. And this is another reason why it is so important that we have well funded pro life organizations who have access to ultrasound equipment.
Mhm.
Thankfully, at the abortion center where I minister most frequently here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, there is a mobile, an RV unit that has a nurse and an ultrasound inside of the RV. And we frequently bring women onto the ultrasound unit to see their baby. And because statistically speaking, when they see the heartbeat, they rarely can go through with the abortion. And so
Yeah.
this is an important part of the ministry, the pro-life ministry, is to humanize the baby inside of the womb by letting the mother see the heartbeat. And so for the millionaires out there watching, we just want to say, find your local pro-life pregnancy center and get involved and see what you can do to help them get that mobile ultrasound unit there. It's a huge part of effectiveness in convincing women to choose life for their children. I want to talk about your amazing initiative, Be Their Village. Can you delve into just a little more of what that process is of connecting women with the resources? And could you tell my listeners how to contribute to Be Their Village?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's purely driven on social media right now because that's
Mm.
where everybody spends their time, right?
Yeah.
What other place can you reach somebody when they're sitting on the toilet? Genuinely, they're scrolling on the toilet. Like you can get anybody on social media.
Yeah.
So that's really where we are right now. We're looking at officially becoming an actual nonprofit where people can donate on a monthly basis.
Yes.
But in order to never have any I like the way that it's set up right now because I don't have to worry about the funds. I'm not filing taxes. I'm not having to do anything like that. It all
Yeah.
goes through Amazon and then we give everything to the woman. So I don't deal with anybody's money personally.
Got you.
Which I think, and I have done some fundraisers. But anyway, so after that woman that I was talking about earlier said that she canceled her abortion appointment and
Hmm.
we decided to help her. And the followers were like, "Hey, can we have
Yeah.
more people to help? How do we find these women?" And I'm thinking, I can't just like go pluck somebody off the street. Like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And how do I do it to where I'm actually getting the people who need help and not people who are trying to abuse the system? Because I promise
Yes.
you, there have been plenty of people who have
Mhm.
tried to take advantage of what we do.
Right.
So basically, I started working with pregnancy centers. I started connecting with them, getting to know them, letting them know what it was that I thought that I could do as far as how to help them. And that
Yeah.
way, when if a woman comes directly to me, I send her to a pregnancy center and then we go from there.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to vet a woman. It feels very weird to say, do you have resources? Do you have a roof over your head? Are you actually pregnant? Was this a planned pregnancy or was this an unplanned
Right.
pregnancy? You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
somebody's getting thousands and thousands of dollars worth of baby items,
Hmm.
we need to make sure that the money's actually going to somebody who is in need, not somebody making six figures. So
Yes.
the pregnancy centers do all that. The women come in most often. Nobody is typically trying to scam a pregnancy center because you're not going to get rich going to a pregnancy
No,
center.
you're gonna get diapers. That's
Yeah,
it.
you'll get some diapers and you'll get some onesies and stuff like that. But if you're
Right.
looking for money, that's probably not going to help you very
Hmm.
much. So it's genuinely women who are in need, whether they're scared, whether
Right.
they don't know what to do, they don't even know how to parent. However, whatever reason it is, they come. And so these pregnancy centers that I've started partnering with, they'll call me when they have somebody who is really down on their luck, financially struggling really badly.
Mhm.
We've had women who are homeless. We've had women who are sleeping on a floor and maybe they have
Yeah.
an apartment, but they don't have a bed, they don't have a dresser, they don't have anything. We've
Yeah.
had women who have been in abusive situations. Actually, one we just had was in an abusive situation. And then right after that, their house burned down right
Mm.
before we started to give them everything. Um, and we've had women who have taken the abortion pill and had it reversed. And
Yes,
we've had
that is
all
a
sorts
thing,
of
people.
I
Yes.
know, which is wild. People don't think that that's actually a thing, but and it saved her twins, not just one baby, but 2 babies. So we've had all sorts
I
of
wanna stop
women.
you there. I'm actually friends with the doctor who created that,
Yeah.
Dr. Matt Harrison, and it's amazing. For those of you that don't know, when a woman goes in and takes the abortion pill, there is actually a window of time. If you reach her, for instance, as she's
Mhm.
walking outside of the from the abortion center, and you reach her with the message of life and you inform her, she's often walking out depressed. She's been weeping inside. She's leaving second guessing. She's regretting this. And if you can reach her on the way out and tell her about abortionpillreversal.com, she can actually be medicated in a way to keep the baby. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of the babies that are born healthy after this is reversed. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to, sorry to interrupt, Christine. I wanted to put that out there because most of the pro life community does not know this is a thing.
Right.
Um, and
And
it's a powerful tool.
it absolutely is. It's
Mm.
progesterone, essentially,
Yes.
is what it is. It's just progesterone. They give it to women who are maybe at risk of having a miscarriage, and so it's not anything that's crazy. The abortion
Right.
industry will tell you that it's bad for you. It's you're
Yeah.
going to bleed, and actually, when you look at the study, they were bleeding because of the abortion pill, not because of the progesterone.
Right.
But it has a 64 to 68% success rate, which is
That's powerful.
that's a
Yeah.
good success rate, and
Yeah.
in one of these cases, it saved both of the babies. They were
Mm.
twins, and we've had other abortion pill reversals that I've seen. I've gotten to hold the babies, which is absolutely beautiful. But
Mm.
essentially, when it comes to who we help, I'd love to help everybody under the sun if I
Yeah.
could. But like the ones who are in need the most is who we target.
Yeah.
And so what we will do is provide them everything that they need, every tangible item that they need:
Yeah.
crib, car seat, stroller, diapers and wipes for a year, clothes for a
Mm.
year,
Wow.
baby bath, shampoo, lotion, shoes, socks in every size, shoes in multiple, baby booties in multiple sizes.
Wow.
If it's something that's tangible that you
Yeah.
need, then you get it. And in some cases the mom needs a bed, or the mom also needs a dresser, and I throw it up on Amazon and we get it,
Wow.
and usually it can fill anywhere from about 45 minutes to a couple of hours now it
Wow.
takes, and they're filled. And people genuinely message me and like, I didn't get in on this one, I need to get in on, like, can you add something else, can you put something else on there? I'm like, there's going to be more moms, we'll have more
Yeah.
moms. But people love doing it, and I think a lot of it is because, well, it's kind of twofold, but they're related. Amazon has a feature where you can do a contribution feature,
Okay.
where you can contribute to an item, even if you don't have the full $200 for a car
Oh,
seat.
that's
You
great.
can put
Okay.
$5 toward it. And
Mm.
I think that people like that because, sometimes they want to donate to things, but they don't
Yeah.
have $200 to
Right.
donate, or they don't have a $500, $1,000 check to write to a pregnancy
Mhm.
center.
Right.
So, and people might feel a little bit insecure donating $5, or
Mm.
I've had somebody say, this is the last $4 in my bank account.
Ah,
But it's so special because you can go on there and say, I'm going to purchase these socks. I know this woman's story
yeah.
anonymously, of course, I never share their names. But I know the story. I picked out these specific socks that are going to go to
Mm.
her baby, and I only have a little bit to give. And so I'm able to give this, and I don't
Mm.
feel weird, but I've seen people give 50 cents.
Yeah.
And so it's really beautiful to be able to do it in that way.
Mhm.
And my followers love it. They see it as a tangible way to give
Yes.
without having to, write $1,000 check or a $500 check, like I said. And pregnancy centers do incredible work. So if you have the ability to give to them, please, please, please do.
Yes.
They're doing phenomenal work, but I think sometimes people also like to see exactly where their money's going. When you write
Yeah.
a check to an organization, it's going to good, but you don't know necessarily exactly what, unless you
Right.
kind of earmark it for something. And
How
so I
much
think people,
overhead is gonna,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
is
And I
this gonna
think
go to
people just love
overhead?
it.
Yeah.
People love picking out, a cute little outfit for a baby, or a little book for a baby. We do toys, we do books, we do
Mhm.
literally as
Yeah.
much as we possibly can, we do it.
Abortion in America is such a behemoth, so it feels so overwhelming to
Mm.
your staunchly pro-life mom who's just sitting there saying, "God, what can I do to make a difference?" And you're just giving such a perfect, tangible way to make a difference, to move the needle in a actual person's life who is in need. And so just can't say enough about how much I honor you for what you're doing, Christine, and want my followers to follow you on Facebook, on Instagram, wherever you are, Twitter, so that when you launch these campaigns for these moms, make sure you're following Christine Jurgen already, and hopefully you're going to see this come up on your feed and be able to bless them. Let's talk about the current pro life landscape and what we're doing well and what we're doing not so well. Was really disappointed in this last political race to see the Republican Party uh, change their platform and go super soft and anti-life in some ways. This was not necessary. We did not need to do this to compromise
Mm.
in order to win the election. And can you speak to this, Christine? What are we doing well in the pro-life movement right now, and what do we need to improve on?
Sure. So I'll say, obviously, the improvement is actually having pro-life movement and the pro-life cause as an actual cause that we care about.
Mm.
So I know they did this in large part as a tool to elect President Trump. I think that that's what they were thinking. They had him back off of this a little bit because they wanted to
Hmm.
draw in more people. But I
Yeah.
promise you, President Trump is such a polarizing figure that the women who are abortion only
Mm.
loathe him.
Right.
He overturned Roe v. Wade. You're
Yeah.
not getting those women. They're
Right.
not coming on our side. I mean, because of what the Republican Party is doing on their platform, they probably didn't even know that the Republican Party removed it from the platform. Only
Did it?
people who are
Probably
really
didn't.
involved, the everyday woman who's, my body, my choice, she's not really paying attention to that. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
So I think that actually having that as something that we care about, and here's what I believe. I believe that President Trump and Vice President-elect JD Vance, I believe that they both actually do care about it. I
Yeah.
think that they were advised because
Ill-advised.
yes, ill-advised
Hmm.
to stop talking about it when I don't
Yeah.
think that that actually did them any favors.
Hmm.
And I think that we will see them, and I'm hoping that we'll see them continuing to push forward with what they did or what President Trump did in the last administration, being a pro-life president. I do think that we've already seen talks of Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy talking about defunding Planned Parenthood. I mean, that's step one. I hope that
Yes.
that's, first day in office, like would be my preference, but easily, first 100
Mhm.
days, that should be done. That's a
Yes.
waste of money. We shouldn't be funding Planned Parenthood in the first place. They can go raise
100%.
their own money if they want to be doing that. So I do think that we're going to see a shift now that the election is actually over. At least it's my prayer that we see a shift back to those original pro-life values, because
Yeah.
JD Vance is a Catholic. He's been pro-life historically. And so I think that we will see that. Now, as far as what we're doing really well, I do see a lot of the pro-life movement taking a shift right now and focusing on chemical abortion.
Mm.
And I think that's because that is the way that it's shifting.
Yeah.
So that's a way a lot of these people are getting around the pro-life laws in multiple states, is we're just going to mail you these pills.
Right.
We're not going to give you a medical exam. So we don't know if you have an ectopic pregnancy. So we don't really care. We just want to make money off of these abortion pills, which is horrifying and actually could be deadly for the woman. We're not
Yes.
going to examine you and see how far along you are. We're just going to mail you these pills. And that way, if you have a 15, 16, 17-week baby, we don't know, you don't know, but you're going to take these pills and it could potentially kill you, just like it has some of the other women. And so I think that that is the route they're taking. They don't have to see the women. They don't have to do this other work. They get to make money off of the abortion pill. They get to send it in the mail, and they don't have to do anything with it. There's no follow-up. There's no exam. There's no nothing.
So dangerous.
And so I think the pro-life movement is witnessing that and seeing that, and we're taking the shift of focusing on that in a lot of ways. And I know
Good.
right now, Students for Life is even trying to combat this at different angles. And what a lot of people don't know is when you take these abortion pills, the abortion companies typically tell you to flush everything down the toilet. what goes in the toilet goes into your water that you're
Ugh,
drinking at home. So there are aborted fetal cells in the water that you drink, and there are abortion
wow.
pills or abortion chemicals in the water that you drink. And
Mm,
we're seeing fertility issues all over. We're seeing animals having issues all over. What goes into the water is also going into our animals, which then goes into our food if you want to really get into super deep. But
yeah.
Students for Life is combating it by bringing up the environmental effects that it has with getting in the water. Whatever you're flushing down that toilet, they're not getting everything
Mm.
out. It's
Such
it's
an
still in
interesting angle to present right now with the rise of the Make America Healthy Again
there. Yep,
movement. I mean, the only angle we should need is the principled angle, and that is
without
abortion
a
is
doubt.
murder.
Without a doubt.
But this is an interesting angle that could be convincing for those who do not stand on principle alone. So yeah, fascinating that you bring that up. I'm glad you are talking about that. And I will say, as far as the platform, you bring up a great point. Look, we're not going to win over the pro aborts anyway, to our side. Furthermore, we risk the judgment of God. This nation is not going to be saved by people alone. We need the hand of God to save this nation. And it is clear in scripture that we need to align ourselves with what God loves in order to see our land be healed. And so that's a great concern is that in our desire to reach more people, we do not need to risk the wrath of God Almighty. And that is something that is in scripture and is very clear.
Yeah. I would add that I do think that we can change people's minds and we can win them over in some ways, but I don't think that Donald Trump was going to be the person to do that. These people that are so pro-abortion and going to the Women's March,
Yeah.
they hate him. And if he says, I'm pro-abortion now, I promise you, it's not like they're going to say, oh, now I'll vote for him.
Yeah.
That they already hate him for so many reasons. That's not the only reason.
Yeah.
So I think that that was definitely a mistake to remove that and have him not talk about it as much, because those are not the people who are going to, Donald Trump is going to win over at any rate.
Yeah, I so agree. I so agree. Often compromise is something that, one feels is going to benefit them. And, compromising your values is never worth it.
No. And then you lose the
So,
people who are very convicted about their values. There's a lot of people, I
right.
don't know if you recall, who didn't vote because he compromised on those
He
values.
waffled. I mean,
Mhm.
we put him in office in 2016. Pro-lifers, evangelicals came out strong, and
Yep.
then and I mean, he came through in powerful ways
Yeah.
with Roe v. Wade being overturned, the pro-life Supreme Court justices. But then some of the statements that were made in the recent campaign were very confusing for people. So I could see why some did that. Although I voted and didn't
I
take that
did. I
stance.
did too.
Awesome, Christine. Well, you're just a great example to moms and women everywhere. And I honor you for that. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And we will make sure to place a link for ways that people can follow you and get involved in what you're doing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.
Hey, that's all for today on the podcast. Make sure you go to my website and subscribe to the newsletter. Social media is notorious for not distributing my posts to my followers. So I want to encourage you to go to elizabethjohnston.org and click the subscribe button and put your email in there. And I only send out 1 or 2 emails a week. We do not spam you or overwhelm you, but it is a great way to make sure that you are seeing our current event blog articles and any events we might be hosting. And also, we notify our audience every time a new podcast drops. So make sure that you go and subscribe to the newsletter. I love you guys so much. Thank you for following and subscribing and listening. If you were blessed by this podcast and want to partner with us and you're watching by YouTube, you can click on the links below. If you're watching via the podcast app, you can go to my website at elizabethjohnston.org. There's never been a more important time to teach our children the sanctity of human life. Get my illustrated pro-life children's book, Little Lives Matter, at my website, elizabethjohnston.org.